Transition. I like the fact that the change scenes the transition. I know it's just the usual thing, but it's just funny for a trans person. So yeah, with that, hello, welcome everybody. I'm Peter slash Ethel, the founder and co-admin of Essence of Thought, and today is going to be a very interesting stream. I'm actually joined by a guest, Levi. I believe some of you might know Levi. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Levi. I run the channel, the Levi Called Bird, and I should say that I'm here because I did the video on Piggy's response to Peter like, at the beginning of the year. But the actual reason I'm here is because a few days ago I said I'm tempted to ask to go on the stream, and then they're like, "Yeah, all right." So now I'm here. So that's fun.
That's just the way we do things. But yeah, you had some points that you wanted to add throughout things. So yeah, I guess we may as well start with why we're here. As some of you probably know, the stream is titled Xanderhal, aka Pigpuncher, is the worst kind of transphobe, which some people find to be rather provocative as a title. And we will come round to exactly why I said this thing, because there is an actual reason. This isn't just hyperbole. But there's a few things I want to note before we really get into that. First of all, starting out with one very important fact that is being ignored by a lot of people criticizing what I'm doing here. And that is the fact that my first interaction with Piggy, took place 2 months ago. Now, this is an important fact to remember, because if this was about ego, if this was about sensitivity, if this was about being unable to take criticism or even take abuse myself, then you'd expect me to have done something at the time. But the fact is, 2 months ago, I was tired. It was not nice what happened, but it was just targeted at me, and I thought, you know what, it's possible that this person is just having a really bad time, they're having an off day, so you know, I'll let it sit, I'll let it slide, you know, it's really not worth it. However, over the past couple of months, I've noticed that this behaviour hasn't stopped. Transphobia seems to be a routine thing for Pigpuncher. And that's why I originally spoke up. I spoke up about a week ago, asking why is it that every time Pigpuncher comes across my radar is because they've targeted a new trans person, especially non-binary people. And I did some asking around, and I found that actually, since our interaction, they've gone ahead and they've targeted at least a further 7 trans people, lying about them in various different ways, making up shit about them, and constantly throughout it is a sense of ableism, there's a sense of transphobia, and it just needs to stop. You know, it's got to the point that whilst I could ignore it when it was just targeted at me, as bad as it was, I can't ignore it when it was targeted at others. Do you have anything you might want to add to that, Levi?
I was thinking things and then I completely blanked. I'm sorry, everyone. I only got about 2 hours of sleep,
That's
so
I'm
not at my best, unfortunately. That was not the plan. That is what happened. So we'll just have
that's
to.
not a problem. Don't need to. We don't want to pad out this with explanations. But I'm just saying, you know, I sat on this 2 months ago. If it was about ego, if it was about being personal, I would have produced this back then. But I didn't. I gave them a chance. They could have corrected things. They chose not to. They chose to continue with transphobic behavior. So here we are. Okay?
I guess the one thing to appreciate is you said they're going after 7 trans people, but just specifically, this has been in about what 2 months?
Mm-hmm.
2 months since your initial interaction.
And this is just asking now very lightly. I didn't even do a deep dive or anything.
Yeah, so this isn't like we looked everywhere for a year and found set. No, it's like 2 months, just a quick
I put out
search.
a single post, I identified 6 MB folk and 1 trans folk standing up for MB people, you know, a binary trans person, and it was just, yeah. Also, I just received a $2 super chat from Lord Huguenot. EOT and Levi, destroy this angry gamer chud. So, yes, anyway. Fact is, there's another thing that I want to discuss before we really go back to the beginning and discuss my initial interaction with Piggy. And yeah, it just, but before we get to that, things have escalated. I had this show planned when I put out the tweet asking, they've gone after these two trans people. Like, why is it they always go after trans people? Why is it they always cross my radar that way, making up shit, very dishonest shit? So I put that out. I scheduled a show. I put the show out, and things escalated from there, as Piggy made very clear his feelings towards this, stating that, quote, "It's a well-known fact that EOT is legitimately an abusive piece of shit with mental issues. I hope they seek professional help so they can get better and improve their life. It can't be healthy to live like that." This is reference 1. Well, you can see the screenshot on reference 1. And I'll actually, I should get better at this. Mental health, yep, I can do that. Let's transition to a screen capture. And I can show you. So, yeah, this is after the show was scheduled. People were talking in the show. They were demanding that I bring Piggy on to debate, and I was pointing out that we're not equal. Now, what do I mean by we're not equal? Had nothing to do with channel size, had nothing to do with viewership, anything like that. It's simply the facts that you don't debate bigots. You refute bigots. You don't invite them on, give them a platform, and elevate them to your level. The only ones who gain from that are the bigots and their ableism, their transphobia, etc. You don't treat a bigot like a person in that setting. You treat them like a pathogen, you isolate them, and you deal with them. So, they came out and stated this. Now, what's going on here? What's the issue here? Well, for those who don't understand what ableism is discrimination or rhetoric that forwards discrimination towards people with disability. In this case, mental health, people with mental health issues, such as myself. I very openly discuss my mental health issues on the channel. I discuss what gave me those mental health issues. Domestic abuse, child rape, and later on a lot of biphobic and transphobic harassment and bullying. So yes, anyway.
Mind if I say some stuff about the mental health thing? Because I have some thoughts on that.
I'm continuing with it. It's not over. Yeah. The thing about this is, what he is doing here is he's trying to use mental health as an argument to strip me of both my autonomy and my voice. It's the same sort of tactic as when a man throws out that she's just crazy when a woman comes forward and discusses the facts that they were raped. It's a way of stripping them of more of their autonomy, and the impact of that is drastic. When you've been through something like that, to have someone then come along and use your experience and the fact that you've been out about your experience, to use that to try and take that autonomy from you, all that can do is put the person back in the situation that, gave them those mental health problems. It is a form of re-victimization. And if you do that in full knowledge of what they've been through, as Piggy very well is, you are no better than the people who originally did the thing. And I'm just putting that out there. We received a £5 super chat from Mystic Mind Analysis. No sense arguing with people who won't discuss the topic honestly, showing his true colours, I guess. So yes, you said you wanted to add something, I believe.
Yeah. So it's very common for people when they're criticizing arguments to make the point of this person is mentally ill, so that argument is wrong. And uh, I think this would go without saying, but apparently it doesn't. Mental health does not automatically make someone wrong, and when it does make them wrong, like it can make someone wrong. Things like anxiety and PTSD can, for example, affect your focus, which can make you miss things or misunderstand things. Complex trauma, like especially schemas, can make you misunderstand people's intentions and get the wrong idea. There's a lot of ways mental health can impact an argument, but first of all, you don't actually have to bring the mental health into it. If someone's argument is wrong, you can just point out how it's wrong. And secondly, if you do bring mental health into it, you should not just say this person is mentally ill and they're wrong. You should explain why the argument is wrong. And then if you understand the topic, you can go in depth about this seems to be what's going on and this seems to be how it's affecting the argument in a way that maybe doesn't strip people with mental health issues completely of their autonomy and demonize them and make them seem like they're inherently bad. Just a thought.
Another thing to keep in mind is that someone just said, oh, well, it's common language. Being common does not make it right. This is something we are tackling, something we definitely need to tackle. But
wasn't there a time most slurs were common language? Like, didn't the N-word used to be common language?
Yes.
Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't make it okay. If everyone else were jumping off a cliff...
But here's the thing, it also intersects with transphobia. This ableism cannot be separated from transphobia. Now, why do I say that? What's the argument all conservatives, all fascists, all alt-righters, all of these people go to say that trans people don't exist? What's the argument they use? Well, it's a mental illness, it's gender identity disorder. When you use this sort of argument, especially in conjunction with trans people, same as with women, it intersects with misogyny as well. When you use it in conjunction with trans people, you are reinforcing the systemic biases. You are supporting the arguments that are used to enact violence against the trans community. And that is something you cannot escape, no matter intent or purpose. That can get damned. That is what you are doing. You are doubling down on your bigotry, making it both ableism and inherently transphobic. You cannot escape that. As Levi notes, having mental health problems does not inherently make you wrong. Okay? My mental health, my anxiety and depression mostly impacts my day-to-day functioning. Getting out of bed, going to the shops. These are the things that are really impacted by my mental health.
For me...
Sorry.
For me, my mental health can impact my arguments, but I have strategies around that. My mental health... the examples I used, I didn't just pull out of thin air, they're mine. My mental health makes it very difficult to focus. So things I do is stuff like I avoid making videos that require a lot of in-depth research of complex scientific papers if I don't think I can do it justice. I spend a lot of time working on scripts so I can come back to them again and again and make sure that I understand everything properly and I haven't missed anything. I will spend a few days just researching and not even writing, just so that the stuff can... So my brain can subconsciously process all the information. That helps a lot. So even when mental health does affect your arguments, a lot of people with mental health issues develop strategies to combat that. So assuming that someone is inherently wrong because they're mentally ill is just so incorrect. It's almost like Pigpuncher is very ableist or something and very uneducated.
Throwing it out there, that's not the end of the argument. If you want to show how my mental health issues impact my arguments, then you go ahead. But to throw out mental health, therefore wrong, non sequitur, does not follow. Thank you to Aaron Green for the $3 super chat. thank you for your donation. Evan says, thank you for your efforts for all of us. So yes, anyway. Sorry, we have an agenda to get through. I've discussed
It's a lot bigger too.
Mm-hmm.
This was 28 points, and over the 5 days since the video went up, it's grown by about 30% just because of the stuff Pigpuncher has been doing over the last 5 days.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, for point 14 is start from the beginning, which is where we originally going to start. But it expanded so much following all this.
30% in 5 days, people.
Mm-hmm.
30% in 5 days.
So yes, my mental health problems do not affect my arguments. If you want to show that, then show that. Don't just throw it out there. And don't throw out, I need to get support because I'm criticizing you. Do you want to know why? Guess what I'm getting? I am seeing a therapist. And do you want to know what my therapist suggests I do? They suggest I bake. They suggest I go up to the terrace and get some sun, enjoy the sight, the birds, the bats. They do not suggest I just let bigots walk all over me, because this comes up a lot. This continues as part of my life, and I do have doubts about what I'm doing. I do question myself, and I ask them, am I in the wrong here? Am I doing the right thing? Should I just stop? Should I just walk away? My therapist always asks me the same series of questions. First of all, why are you fighting? Well, I'm fighting to secure my community. Because if trans people, including myself, can't feel safe here, then where else do we have to go? Most of us don't have circles in our real lives that we can turn to. We turn to online circles to make up for that. So if we can't feel secure in these spaces that are supposed to be LGBT plus inclusive, then we have a problem. So they said, okay then. Is that a want or a need? At which point it's like, you've boxed me in here, okay? Fighting bigots is not a problem for my mental health. Standing up to them is necessary for my mental health. And it's not just my mental health either. It's the mental health of everybody. Because again, 2 months when it was just me, I decided small fry, I don't know this person, I don't care enough about them at the time. I criticised them a bit on Twitter, showed up their actions, and that was really it. I left it alone. It's when I saw Piggy going for more people, that's when I stepped up, because it was impacting the community as a whole. And I couldn't stand by while that was happening. There have been several people, including someone who came along and just told me I need to shut down my YouTube account, etc. It's so affecting me. It's like, have you not been listening to everything I say? I left it alone for 2 months when it was me. I'm stepping up when it's other people. Okay? And they don't seem to be able to address that. And okay, thank you, Randy. R&D, Rhetoric and Discourse, thank you. This is from the wonderful subs on my channel. Thank you. I'll have to readjust the amount because I think I've left that on there. So yes, thank you for the donation. I was in thought, and I have derailed myself. So yes, anyway. What was I saying, Bird?
You were giving a really impactful, beautiful speech about how you don't need to stop standing up for bigots for your mental health. You need to do it to actually make your mental health better. If
we just abandon the community, then we got nothing. That's what holds a lot of our mental health there. Think about how everyone's been feeling recently with the quarantines going on. How do you feel with no community? Because trans people, a lot of them have been feeling like that for a very long time because they can't be out with everybody. Or if they are out, they're ostracized or abused. So a lot of them turn to online communities, and when they turn up and they see misgendering, which we'll come to Piggy's misgendering later, when they see that, when they see ableism, which is attached to trans people, when they see all of this, that does not create an inviting community. And it kind of it forces trans people to leave. It makes trans people social nomads, if you will. Like they're having to shift from community to community all the time, because no matter where they go, no matter what communities they help set up, because they do help set up these communities, they do help lead the way. No matter what communities they help set up, and this is true of almost all marginalized groups, eventually the cishet wokelets, that's their term, the cishet, I'm trying to think, the white saviors, that's the actual phrase I'm looking for, the white saviors come in and decide that, you know what, they're going to tell us what's best for us. They're going to tell us what we have to do, otherwise they're going to become abusive towards us and it's going to be our fault. It's just, this continuously happens, and we're continuously moving away, starting new communities, moving away, starting new communities, and it's just like, sometimes I just want to stop and say, no, we just don't. Yes, anyway, intersexual transphobia. As this is quite clear, Piggy was very busy poisoning the well before my stream ever went out, before we knew a single one of my arguments. Never open to the possibility that maybe I'd have something valid to raise.
This isn't the first time he did it either. He did the same thing with the videos, where he was criticizing your third video before it had even been made.
Yeah.
He loves criticizing things that don't exist. It's very weird.
Yeah, he seems to have this ability to predict what is going to occur, and it's just. And in that he just validates my problem, because again he's just not allowing trans people to speak. He's not allowing them to criticize people. Fact is, it turns out I'm not the only one who's gone after their mental health. I've talked around to a load of different people. He has gone after a lot of people's mental health, including someone else who will be mentioned in the video. Was being discussed in parts of the video. I don't want to name them or put focus on them because of the case I'm about to describe. Again, he dug deep. He went to their past, found out something that happened to them in their childhood, and used that as evidence that they were abusive and needed to be silenced. And this is a reoccurring pattern that's going on. For those who don't know who I'm talking to, it's Levi from a Levi called Bird. I should have put you in the description. I do apologize. I will do that later. Fact is, all of this worked because what he was doing was drumming up his supporters to harass me, and that's his modus operandi, is it? That's the way he operates, and it worked. I actually received a threat on his behalf. I'm going to go to screen capture again, transition. So it started out plainly enough. Someone came along, told me that if I could kindly not incite division in our movement, that would be nice. Maybe try having a discussion with Xander instead of, a circle jerk about him. To which I responded, it's not our movement. You're standing there with a fascist that has a lick of leftist paint, grinning at trans people with a knife, and you expect me to side with you? Fuck off. We'll come back to the fascist comment later.
I'm sorry. I've seen that thing before, but I just realized, is he accusing you of having a circle jerk?
Yes. Even though...
Preparing for this, the number of times I've sent something just with Google what is irony is ridiculous.
Yeah. But anyway, following this... Oh, I just realized everyone can see what I was looking at there. Following this, I received the following. Essence of thought. It is our movement, and any attempt you take to undermine that will be met by force. This is your one warning. So, as you can note, this wasn't posted as a reply to the previous thread. This was posted alone. The person then blocked me and I think they did that to try and like, I don't know what they were doing in doing that. Get the threat out there, hope I'd see it, and then make it so I couldn't report it. But yeah, so that went out, and I posted very quickly about this. It's reference 2 in the description. I posted with the original like lead up, so it showed that it was about Pigpuncher in the community, and then the response that threatened me. I posted these 2 images together. I haven't posted a single one of these images on their own. That fact will be important later. Now, for the longest time, I received no apology. However, one thing I did find out was that Piggy stole the screenshot. The first one I showed, where it was the person telling me to, not divide the movement. Piggy came along, saw my tweet showing the threats. It was literally stated, and now I'm being threatened on behalf of Piggy. Saw that, went to it, stole the first image of me responding to the person, left the second image of me being threatened, and posted the first image to their own wall, just to try and frame this as if my fears were unfounded, when by the very facts that I was threatened within a minute of posting that, kind of validated my point. So yes, they stole this. However, I was then notified later on, I think it was on the evening of the 16th, it might have been,
It might be in this very specific date. I don't know. It's either I have my perfect memory or I can't remember anything.
Okay, I think it was the 17th. Oh no, it was the 16th. On the 16th, Piggy had a unlisted stream in which they posted what at first I took to be a very insincere apology. Later on, there was something even more troubling about it, which was pointed out to me. I will quickly play that video. Levi, you're not going to be able to hear this,
Okay.
but you've seen the video before, haven't you?
Yeah, I watched it, unfortunately.
This will be for
I'll never
everyone
recover.
else. This transition. This is screen capture. Oh, was that on? Have I been showing Chrome this entire time rather than actual screen capture? Okay. That was a foolish mistake of me. Oh, sorry.
We're professionals, people.
Yeah. Anyway, this was the first one I was going on about. It's a well-known fact that EOT is a legitimately an abusive piece of shit with mental health issues. I hope they seek professional help so they can get better and improve their life. It can't be healthy to live like that. Then it was the threats, wasn't it? Yeah, this is the one that Piggy stole. This is the one that he stole and posted on its own, even though I posted the 2 together to Twitter. This is the one he left out, in which I got threatened. So yes, I just wanted to show you that. This is the video. This is the clip I found in that video.
Someone DM'd me on Twitter. I just got back from a thread from where one of your fans threatened EOT violence under the mantras of "you're either with us or against us," and the "you're either with us or enemy," and called them and you a fascist. I disavow. I don't like that kind of talk. EOT is just an abusive piece of shit. But don't... I can't type. Threaten them. God, how many ads do I have? God, I have so many fucking notifications. It's fucking insane. God help me.
So yes, that's it. And on screen, you can see the Twitter, the tweet they put up when they stole my image. Again, they saw the image, I was being threatened on their behalf, and decided to label me a real enemy of the left. Great first response. But yes. Now, I just took that to be as insincere as fuck. One, it was way too late. They clearly knew of the issue. Levi, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. One, they knew of the issue. It was way too late. I took it to be as insincere. And then someone pointed out the I disavow is a fascist dog whistle. It comes from Donald Trump in 2016. It comes from when he was being supported by David Duke, the creator of the KKK, or leader of the KKK, sorry. He was being supported by David Duke, and all he would say is, I disavow, never once stating, what he was disavowing, just so he couldn't be clipped as saying that he disavows white supremacist. It was taken by both Trump supporters and Trump critics to be a insincere statement, that he was saying, I disavow, so the papers had to report on that, but white supremacists were pumping out memes like that. We get what you're doing, Trump. You don't actually disavow David Duke, sort of thing. This meme then re-emerged surrounding the Charlottesville events and the murder of Heather Heyer. And again, I disavow started becoming popular online in certain far-right circles, including circles that Piggy once belonged to. Piggy knows this. Piggy knows the insincerity of the statement, I disavow. And that was the exact wording he decided to go for. Now, what does that tell us about his priorities? Of course, there's also the issue of the fact that the video was unlisted. This video was not a public condemnation. It was unlisted in the middle of a stream when no one was going to find it. Meanwhile, his tweet calling me the enemy of the left to try and incite further threats against me, that was public. That was on his Twitter account. However, after I started pointing out this dog whistle, suddenly he changed tact. Finally, on the 18th, I believe, was it? No, it wasn't the 18th. Finally, just the other day, actually, he actually finally came out and gave a very watery apology. Well, not actually an apology, a condemnation. It wasn't an apology of any sort. Transition, screen capture. Okay. So this is on the March 18th. Okay, so it was the 18th. I was right. Also, for God's sakes, don't threaten anyone I'm having beef with. If you want to engage, just correct their misinformation and move on. Threats and violence just make both you and me look bad, and they use it as ammo against my entire fan base. Be better than that, please. Notice the focus there. Not, this is wrong, but it makes both me and you look bad. So yeah, I didn't even get the name, by the way. No mention or anything, even though it's quite clear who it is about. They also published another apology, this time about Social Justice Demon, who, if you didn't know, Piggy had been misgendering him in Piggy's streams. They were corrected on this. Piggy went ahead and lied, saying that he had they, them in his profile, in his Twitter profile. He didn't. And then, after that was pointed out, on the 18th, like within 10 minutes of the thing about threatening me, they posted this. Social Justice Demon is claiming I misgendered him by referring to him with they, them, when his pronouns are he, him. I think this claim is super bad faith, but if they are uncomfortable with they, them, I'll do he, him. I try to default to they, them with pronouns since it helps normalize those pronouns in a society that thinks gender is binary. It's also technically grammatically correct. But if Social Justice Demon is hurt by that, then I do apologize. Misgendering, intentional or not, isn't okay, even if it's towards an abusive person who happens to be trans. I do believe I just got a super chat, if my audio is correct. $10 super chat from McGay. I've noticed as people tend to use fascist dog whistles a lot. They tend to use it ironically, but that only seems to increase the confusion of the term this is making it a better dog whistle. That's the thing. That it's debatable about whether they're actually using it ironically.
Hang on, can we go back to the tweet? I actually wanted to point out a couple of things.
I was going to point out a couple of things as well. I just wanted to quickly do that.
We're going to dissect this and pick it apart.
Dissect this. As a non-binary person who uses they them pronouns, I would like to invite Piggy to go and eat a brick. Once a person tells you that their pronouns are specific, you damn well use those pronouns. Okay? And when Social Justice Demon, when he made that clear, you respect that. And I'm open to the possibility of a mistake, but what you do if you make a mistake like that, if you accidentally misgender someone, you correct yourself, maybe a slight apology, and move on. You do not, first of all, lie about him and claim that he has they them pronouns in his profile. Didn't. And then go ahead and try to justify your actions at a later date. You either give an apology or you do not give an apology. You do not give an apology whilst arguing that you were right and that you were doing this for non-binary people. You weren't. Transphobia can never be used to forward the cause of non-binary people or any trans people for that matter. Matter. I do apologise. Yeah, and it's also, again, Piggy here is placing the onus on Social Justice Demon, talking about how if he's offended, and also there's the whole bad faith thing, and it's just, it reads as one of the most insincere apologies I've read in a while. And I dealt with Stephen fucking Woodford last year, so that's saying something. Yes, what did you want to say, Levi?
Right, yeah. So dissection time. Dibs on the spleen. Two things I noticed is, one, they go into the thing of how, I'm trying to normalize they, them pronouns to help non-binary. Like, they're trying to say
you don't have to turn to transphobia to do that, people.
They're trying to be like, you're the real transphobes. I'm trying to help non-binary people. No, shut up. No, you're not. The second thing is, he's just fucking lying about that. Okay, here's a secret, guys. You don't need to normalize they them pronouns anymore. I get there are a few people like stick in the mud types who are like, it's plural only. There are a few people who are like, I'm not quite used to using it to refer to someone when I know their gender. But for the most part, they them pronouns are very mainstream now. What we need to normalize.
They always have been subconsciously as well. Like a lot of people, when they see someone driving along and they don't know the gender of the person, they'll use they them.
They're like, there's a slight nuance there where if you don't know someone's gender, it's subconsciously you do it. If you do know them, for some people it could feel a bit weird. But like these days, especially on the left, they them pronouns are just mainstream now. We don't need to normalize them anymore. What we do need to normalize is neo pronouns is one. We need to normalize neo pronouns, but the other one is we need to normalize remembering people's pronouns and using specific pronouns for specific people, like what Piggy refused to do with Social Justice Demon.
Yeah. And it's also like, don't fucking try to bollocks your way out of this. When Social Justice Demon makes clear that his pronouns are he, his, you use he, his. Like, the thing is, at most, you apologize. Like, a lot of trans people just want you to, like, correct yourself and move on, because it can become like this awkward situation of where cis people make misgendering about themselves, where it's like, it's so damn hard for me, which they're actually sort of doing with the I try to default to they them, which, by the way, wasn't the issue. The issue was not Piggy came along and originally used gender neutral pronouns. People don't take an issue with that. They take an issue with the fact that when corrected, you still do it. And then you try to bullshit your way and pretend that actually I was right to do it. And then when you make an apology, again, you do the whole thing of, well, I'm the savior of the trans community. And
one thing I want to make a point of is I think that most trans people, the thing is with they them is some people are just very, very used to defaulting to it, do it without thinking. And for some people, it can be hard. Like, I think for me personally, my brain doesn't work most of the time. Sometimes keeping track of people can be hard. Sometimes with my best efforts, keeping track of pronouns can be hard. So, for me, a lot of the time, even reading is hard. So I think people understand that sometimes you just make mistakes because remembering pronouns does take effort. For some people, that effort can be too hard. There's a difference between saying, though, oh, I'm sorry. Sometimes that's the thing I do. I'll try my best if I mess up, but I'm sorry. And saying, oh, actually, I'm the real trans ally. I'm just trying to help non-binary people. There's a huge difference between those two things.
Yeah.
I think most trans people can forgive mistakes, but not gaslighting.
There's also the bad faith, like second guessing someone's. When they're telling you that their pronouns are this, they are telling you that because otherwise they are dysphoric. Okay, it makes them uncomfortable. It's dysphoria-inducing. Fucking respect that. Okay, he's trying to minimize that and say, well, it's bad faith. Quite clearly, they're just looking for a grudge against me. And by the way, this is not the last time. They actually went on to misgender another person very recently, which is the one that I saw just before this whole thing kicked off. Where do I have it? Misgendering again, and this one is like the fucking. Again, it could be an accident. It could have been an accident, and I could accept that. But when like a load of trans people are focusing intently on what you are doing, you think you would do everything you could not to misgender another person. Yeah.
I think I know the one you're talking about.
I think you know the one I'm talking about. This is brilliant. This one happened. It is, of course, Black Magic Bimbo. Or, as she has as her title on Twitter, Lady Lovelace. She/her only. And what does Piggy come along and do? Uses they. Repeatedly. Double tweets, 4 minutes apart. Time to see that what Piggy was doing was wrong. And like one of Piggy's like tight-knit defenders came along and pointed out, it's she. Last I checked today, this tweet was still up.
Yeah. Cine actually called them out. I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah.
You know it's bad when Cine calls them out.
Yeah, it's just... It really fucking irks me that this is continuous.
Hang on, so someone else is asking me a question and you a question. I type in the chat, but my keyboard is loud. Asking if you have the Google Doc where you put the quote screenshots of Piggy's early round of tweets, unquote.
I don't know if I do.
He defined bad faith in a really weird way.
I don't know if I have that. I don't have that on record at the moment. I can look for it.
Sorry, Nestle 20. Apologies.
But yeah, so again, repeated misgendering, and like some of this is so basic, some of it is so easy to fix, to repair. And another thing, I should note, it's going to come up sometime. One of the people we discussed, Social Justice Demon, he came to me and he told me straight away when I was like asking people for like, has Piggy targeted you? He came to me and he told me up front that they understand if I don't want to talk about what happened to him because in his own words, shit has happened. They've made some mistakes. Now they linked me to two specific cases. There was a racially insensitive statement and there was sharing of some photos. However, they also showed me evidence that they were being put in touch with people to fix those mistakes with the people they'd hurt. And one of the mediators in one of those processes was Black Magic Bimbo. And it's so ironic because Piggy is doing this whole thing about like de-radicalizing the right and, you know, fixing things and leftist unity and all this. And it's like two of the people you are going after and constantly abusing are actually, you know, trying to work to do things better. One has made mistakes, admitted to it, and I'll leave it to the person or people they have hurt to fucking like discuss that. Okay? I can't accept an apology on behalf of the other people. So I'm just gonna let them look at that. No matter what, So no matter what social justice demon had done, that would not justify misgendering, using the wrong pronouns. That would also not justify any of the other sort of abuse that Piggy likes to partake in, the constant ableism, dragging up history, etc. None of that would matter. And I'm going to use a very extreme sort of cross example to show you this. Bill Cosby.
Sorry, it's just
Sorry, yes.
Leslie in the chat is saying they can send a link.
We're not going to do that now.
Me.
We're not going to do that now, okay? So we're not doing that now. I'm saying we're not doing that now. It's not on the agenda, okay? Right now we're not doing that. Okay, I'm keeping to what we have planned. Sorry.
I wasn't suggesting that. I just wanted to tell them I can't access my Twitter. I actually can't access the
Okay,
link.
but we're not adding anything to what we've got here. I'm just letting people know. Thank you for trying, but we've got a lot to get through already. We have 3 pages of notes to get through, 38 points to get through. We received a $2 donation from Adoniel H. Thank you. Yeah. Anyway, as I was saying, Bill Cosby. I think we can all agree Bill Cosby is a fucking piece of shit. A fucking rapist, a child rapist. However, if I was start using racial slurs against them, that wouldn't be justified. If I was to start using it to make a load of assertions about people of colour, wouldn't justify it. You know, there are things that harm the community as a whole, which you just do not do. No matter what a person has done, you do not do it. You do not turn to it in that way. Again, I'll allow the people that social justice demon has hurt. I'll allow them to decide for themselves if what they're doing is right. If they're making amends, that is up to them, no one else. But yes. Anyway, fact is, a lot of you might be going, well, what is the threat of violence? It's just some random person coming along. The fact is, Piggy trains this behavior, and this is reference 5 I'm about to show. Transition again. Where is it? It is somewhere. That's it. Yep. Alhana. Just like to thank Alhana. I imagine they're hanging around. This is how. Ow! I've got to turn that notification down a bit. Yes. This is a statement that was made to Sosh, who was also probably hanging around. They're trying to get me banned. Had to block them, as fun as it was seeing you guys tear them apart. That is how Piggy sees discussion with trans people. When trans voices speak up, when trans voices talk about what they're doing, what they do is that they treat it like a blood sport. That's just, it is just a blood sport. It's just pushing things that way. Kaiden Pat, $1.99, keep up the good work. George Orwell, apparently Social Justice Demon's YouTube channel still has a video thumbnail. I do not know about this, so I will not comment on it. Again, they can deal with that. All I'm pointing out is the fact that no matter what they've done, wouldn't justify the transphobia that Piggy engages in. Contrary to what people like Piggy seem to believe, proving the person that they're going after to be a shit person would not then make their behaviour right. That's not how the world works. I don't know if your parents taught you the basic concept of 2 wrongs do not make a right, but yeah. Do you have anything to add, Levi?
Are we engaging with Cinny's bullshit or not? Because I see something in the chat that might be worth covering quickly.
What's that?
So they're saying, you're gonna talk about what Sush said?
They were basically criticizing Piggy and their fucking appalling behavior towards everybody.
I think they're talking about the swastika comment where basically, okay, so basically what I saw from Sush was they're like, oh, big talk from a guy whose logo is basically a swastika, and then everyone took this very seriously. It wasn't serious. From what I know of Sasha and from what they told me, I think they were just trying to be clever and then didn't quite succeed.
Funny how it's just a
But
joke.
that's obviously it's so obviously not serious. Who says that seriously?
But anyway,
no one thinks Xanderhal's logo is a swastika. It was just a bad joke.
Morning star, not morning. What's the throwing stars? I forget what the throwing stars are called.
Shuriken?
Shuriken, yes. I believe it's a shuriken, isn't it?
From what I've seen of him, it's just a fancy X.
Okay. Yeah, so...
Stop losing your mind over jokes, Pigpuncher fans. You are so sensitive. Grow some skin.
Mm-hmm. I'm just having a look at what's happening in the chat. Yes, he does not deserve to be misgendered. That is correct. Sorry, I should be ticking these things off as I'm like going through them. Trains this behavior. And following all this abuse being targeted towards trans people, they've started gathering a certain crowd of people. And not just gathering, but retweeting them. Some people I know personally. Where is it? Where is this group? I really should have done this better. Yes, so 3 people here. 2 of them are really worth noting. Noel Plum and Godot, also known as the Chief and Nerd. Both of them are attracted to what Piggy is doing. Noel, Xander knows about Noel. For those who don't know who Noel is, Noel Plum is
the most violent transphobe. The most violent.
No, he's not. He's not the most violent, but he is
okay, but he's the most disgusting, okay?
He is one of the most disgusting. He likes to help other, like, shit people, such as Queen Trans here, which is Sarah Mitchell, a trans woman who's trying to become the next Blair White. She likes creating videos that argue for fascists to be platformed. She also likes to list things about non-binary people and try to use them to argue why they're not trans. And Noel Plum, as a person, is someone who likes to come along and buy into that and build into it and play into it and build on that notion. Now this is a screenshot Piggy has, because I sent this to Piggy 2 months ago, because Piggy was talking about how the facts that I ignored this one token trans person in the whole Woodford issue, and that one trans person was Sarah Mitchell, who again likes to argue Nazis have a right to be platformed. So they're true scum, pretty much. That's plain and simple. They're true scum, and Noel is again another white cis guy who comes along and asserts himself in to try and decide what trans people should and shouldn't be doing. As for the other one, Chief and Nerd, this one Piggy probably didn't know of, but I did make them aware of it after I saw this. Oh, sorry. This is the same person, Chief and Nerd, Jonathan Friedel. And this was following Telltale Atheist, who is a person that supported Stephen Woodford, who accused me of starting violence at the Faithless Forum last year. They said they had video footage of it. I asked for the video footage. No video footage surfaced. To this day, they have not apologized. Anyway, following this, I called them out over it, asking them to, what exactly did I do? To which Chief and Nerd responded, EOT, here is how all this pans out. I don't know any trans people, so in a sense, you are the first. First impressions are everlasting. The damage you have done to trans people by going after Faithless Forum as you did, I will now always be skeptical of trans people. They then follow this up with, I am now more than transphobic, and a few others in this post are solely responsible. I will make sure everyone I know does not support the trans community thanks to you and other posters here. This was the case before this thread. Fact is, after I explained this to him, after I showed this by posting it, and I know he was watching my account because he was like going after everything I was saying, Piggy decided to go ahead and retweet them. Retweet Chief and Nerd, the person who very openly tells them, declares that they are more than simply transphobic. That is who Piggy is surrounding himself with. Yeah. It's almost like transphobia attracts other transphobes, and the transphobes can identify where the transphobia is, and they're the ones going there. Anything you want
It's
to
also, it's almost like transphobes like other transphobes, even when they claim they're not transphobic, they're actually the best trans ally guys.
Indeed, it's a way for them to sort of get in. Okay, and
But according to the thing, we're up to the bit where we talk about the video, and that's like my area of expertise. So
we've been 1 hour, and this is the introduction.
There's a lot. Yeah, he's been doing a lot. He's been tweeting a lot the past few days.
Yeah, that's just like all the shit that's been piling up since I decided I'm going to make a stream and discuss the other transphobia. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Mind if I tell the story? Because this is about my video.
Okay, if you want to tell the story, you're free to tell the story.
Yay. Okay, so back in January, Piggy put out a stream called Essence of Thought, Bad Faith Criticism of ContraPoints, where he responded to about 6 minutes of the 43-minute video that was the first in a 3-part series that Peter did responding to ContraPoints. And so I did it. I happened to, they approached me, Peter, and said, do you know anything about Pigpuncher? And I was like, not really. Decided to watch the video. And like immediately I started noticing massive contradictions, like not just inaccuracies, but like actual contradictions. Before I knew it, I'd taken a list of notes and I'm like, I can get a video response out in 3 days. Would you like that? And then you can focus on what you're doing. And they're like, yeah, okay. So that happened. Nothing came of it. Piggy just ignored it. But the video, like his main criticism, the smoking gun, was that Peter hadn't watched all of Contra's video before starting to respond to it. And it wasn't true. No, it wasn't true. Piggy...
It really
so what happened was, there was this one bit Peter said where they mumbled a bit. They were like, originally, stop watching. And because Pigpuncher was playing at double speed and not really paying attention, and also maybe being a bit dishonest, he just heard stop watching and was like, they didn't watch the whole video. And that misconception would continue to go throughout the entire video because they didn't want to slow down to normal speed, or try looking at the auto-generated closed captions, or look at the transcript that is always pasted in every single video description of every single video.
Or, can I say, consider the fact that immediately after I say this, I go on to describe the rest of Natalie's video.
That's true. Or just say, I'm not sure what happened here. We'll leave it alone. Maybe we'll come back to it. Like, there are so many things he could have done. He didn't do that. He's just immediately like, they didn't watch the whole video. Bad faith. And that's a thing that they do a lot, where they'll just very conveniently choose the most uncharitable possible explanation for something. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to go through that whole video because it already exists. You can watch it on my channel.
I just want to note that, like, some people might say that I'm like retroactively saying I watched the whole video. If you check under reference 7, there are now a few bonus links, which the first one was on the 5th of January, where I publicly announced that I'd set my sights on responding to Natalie's video. So I was going to read all of them. Then, on January the 6th, I announced that I'd reached the original point I'd watched up to, editing it as I was going along. And then on the 7th of January, I announced that I'd watched the whole video, chopped it up into segments, decided like the layout of the 3 videos that would be coming, and only then had I started to write the script. Because here's the thing, I didn't want to say something in the first video that I then had to come back around and apologize for in the third video as Natalie went on to address it. You know, it makes sense for me to watch the whole video. Now, this is where I and Levi disagree on it actually a little bit, because I point out the facts that Pigpuncher, Piggy, didn't watch my whole video. They watched the first few minutes, then cut off, and that was that. And it's like, that's a little hypocritical, isn't it? I've got to watch all of Natalie's 2-hour video. You can't even make it, 6 minutes. But Levi has their own suspicions of what happened.
Oh, yeah. So he very conveniently happened to cut off the video just before a section, because he was claiming like Essence of Thought just is jealous of Natalie and wants to steal her fame, so they're making up all these criticisms that they don't like. And he happened to cut off just before the section of the video where Peter just gushes about how they were a massive fan of Natalie, and also shows like actual pictures proving that fact, like really, really indisputable proof. Happens to cut off just before then. So I think I can't prove anything. That's a little bit suspicious. It's a bit convenient, just a little bit. So I don't know.
The two pieces of evidence I had was a Photoshop of the classical gods of Olympus, and I called it the gods of Cuck Olympus, taking the piss out of like the whole cuck insult. And I had H Bomber Guy as Zeus, and it was Natalie as, I forgot Zeus's main wife. Is it Aphrodite or?
I don't know. I'd assume if you're going to make
Hera. It's Hera, isn't it? It's Hera. Is it Hera? I think it's Hera.
It doesn't matter. We don't have time.
The queen of Olympus. I made that as Natalie. I tweeted it out. Everyone tweeted it out. Everyone retweeted it from the collage. I should note, Jim Sterling appeared, and Stardust, who is a different person, also appeared. I was really happy with that at the time, and now I look upon it as shame. Another one was the fact that I saw a mouthfeel remark in the Dungeons and Dragons group I followed. I was like, your cultural penetration is deep, my lady. And she retweeted it, and I was fucking happy. And I remembered she retweeted it months down the line. Okay, so I could like go back and show. Actually, it's still liked by Natalie. So like I showed the facts that I didn't hate Natalie. At least not originally, not before all the non-binary shit just started getting to a point where I just couldn't ignore it. I was not just starting out with a grudge. I was not just jealous of Natalie and her success. I was just a non-binary person who was really hurt by what's happening. And I should explain what the original video was about, because that's actually where I was going to start. And then I was going to go on. Oh no, did I? No. Right, no, that was after. Right, you're right. You're doing it the right way. I'm doing it the wrong way. What was my?
It's almost like I'm reading the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, but we don't have time. You derail my whole thing. Going on from hurt feelings. So I'm not going to explain everything in the video because it exists. You can go watch it later, and also because the main focus is like defending Peter. But there are a few instances of transphobia in that video I want to cover. And the first one, literally the first thing Piggy says, I've got
reference 9,
timestamps.
by the way. Reference 9, by the way, is your video.
I've even got timestamps. I was a very good boy. I did my homework. 3:30 to 3:50. This is after Piggy's long introduction where he's actually saying stuff. First thing he says. He claims that hurting trans people's feelings isn't the same as it isn't a problem. He's like, Contra hurts trans people's feelings, but doesn't actually not hurting trans people, just their feelings. That is extremely transphobic. It's literally just the whole, trans people are so sensitive, trans people are so unreasonable thing. This is the thing you hear from the right wing.
The facts don't care about your feelings.
Facts don't care. Just because I'm hurting your feelings, it doesn't mean that I'm actually being transphobic. You're just... It's literally that. And that's what he starts with. And it's also extremely abusive. This is a common gaslighting thing.
Trivialization.
minimizing, trivialization, the whole "you're too sensitive, you shouldn't be offended by it, you shouldn't be hurt by this. Just because you're hurt doesn't mean I'm doing anything wrong." And it also ignores the reality that emotional and psychological violence and emotional and psychological harm is a thing. You can really mess someone up just by saying things to them. That's just a reality. I know we'd like it more if that weren't the case, but it's true. You can commit violence against an entire group of people just with words. The idea that just because trans people's feelings are hurt, that can be a problem in and of itself, and often is. And the other thing I want to point out is he just assumes that the hurt feelings are not legitimate. He doesn't say, "Oh, she hurt their feelings. This is what she did. This is why they feel hurt. This is why it's not a problem." He just says, "Oh, it's hurt feelings. It doesn't matter." So that is, there's so much to unpack just in that one thing. This is 3:30 to 3:50, 20 seconds, one short comment, all that to unpack. And there's 3 more points. I'll try and be quick, but oh god, it's just so bad.
I'm just reviewing what we've done so far.
Second point, 6:55 to 8:15 and 1843 to 2049. You are not going to believe this is a sentence that actually has to exist now. Piggy compares trans people to Nazis twice. Couldn't just do it once, had to be twice. Compared trans people, especially non-binary trans people, to Nazis. The first time was leading off from Peter's criticism of Natalie. They said that, so basically what happened, and this is very funny as well, because this is when Pigpuncher declared the entire video in bad faith. They basically said that Natalie said trans people, non-binary people, behave the same way as Nazis, and that it's difficult to distinguish between them. And what Pigpuncher essentially said was, she never said that. What she said was that non-binary people act like Nazis and that she's having trouble telling them apart. And it's just like, Piggy, my love, my friend, that's the same thing. You're just using different words.
Trans gamer girl also, I saw that the other day, also got called a Nazi. Which is funny because he starts throwing these labels around without evidence. I have evidence of dog whistles and accounts in other places, but apparently that's wrong. When you do this, when you say it with evidence, it's wrong. When you say it without evidence, it's fine.
Yeah, and you weren't even this one wasn't you calling anyone a Nazi either. You were just repeating the things that ContraPoints very clearly said. But yeah, he declared the whole thing bad faith because he agreed with you, which is hilarious and also very sad. But then the second time was actually completely unprompted. Like he had no reason to do this. So Peter made the argument that canceling doesn't have the same issues as calling out because it can only be done by a former fan, so there's less chance for it to be done.
It's not that it doesn't have the issues. It's more restricted because it has to come from a core
it's not like it has no issues. That was another thing you got wrong. It's not it has no issues. It's just it's less likely. It reduces the probability that it's being done for bad reasons. But the thing is, Pigpuncher's argument for that was sorry, I'm blanking a bit. It was that if PewDiePie denounced Nazis tomorrow, his Nazi audience would cancel him. And it's like, that's true, but Nazis are not an accurate model of regular non-binary people. It's like saying, oh, well, Hitler did this thing, so the guy next door would do the same. No, that's not how it works. It's
a guilt by association. It's finding a common trait. Nazis breathe air. You breathe air. Therefore, Nazi.
I don't think that's guilt by association. But yeah,
actually, it is because it's not just person. People think guilt by association is just about people. It's not. It's any relevant trait. So, for example, a very common one is Stalin.
We all breathe air.
Stalin had facial hair. Hitler had facial hair. Therefore,
I have facial hair.
Therefore, facial hair equals genocidal.
But I'm a genocidal fascist. You heard it here first, folks.
Yes. So, but like the thing is, it didn't need to be there.
Yeah, I was just about to get to that. He actually admits this himself after the first comparison to Nazis. He says that, like, this is this is just the way people on the internet treat people they don't like. So he literally admitted that this wasn't Nazi behavior. He did not make a similar admission for the second one, but we can all see why that was completely unnecessary.
Yeah,
It could work to prove a point. Like, he could say, not always. This really extreme example, I know that it's extreme, but I'm just proving it's not always. He didn't do that though.
and here's the thing: like, it's also the context of the fact that that's what Natalie stated. Like,
Yeah,
she was stating that, so to then go and use that as an example, it's very sloppy at the very least. And I just want to say thank you to Lee for your £2 super chat, and to Benjamin Morrison for your $10 super chat. No messages for either, but yes, thank you.
Anyway, got to be quick. Basically, Piggy compared non-binary people to Nazis more than once. Literally admitted once that he was being dishonest, and it was completely rubbish. Another thing he does is he claims that non-binary people criticize ContraPoints out of envy and a desire for success, rather than because they genuinely have issues, which we've already touched on a bit. He makes
how much success am I getting from this? My subscriber count went down, not up. My Patreon went down, not up. People seem to have this belief that if you criticize someone popular, it makes things go up. It doesn't.
If you defend people popular, it does. That's basically how I got an audience. But criticizing popular people doesn't help. You're so successful. You got negative 100 success. He paints this picture of all. Timestamp for that one was 2847 to 3001. He makes this claim of non-binary people in general, not specific people. He says, "Oh, these people," doesn't even specify it's like a specific subset. He just says these people, what I think they're doing, without evidence, by the way, what I think they're doing is they just want Natalie's success, and they're envious, so they're criticizing her. That's really transphobic, is to just paint all trans people as really petty, here's
the thing: I'm a totally different part of YouTube to Natalie. I'm not a what's the word, diplomat.
You're also not the one that does the flashy, expensive stuff, because you actually you don't have tons of money for no reason.
No, but things I'm not a diplomat. I'm not here to focus on cis people. If you're a cis person who wants to come lurk on the channel, learn some stuff, more than welcome. I'm here for trans people, first and foremost. My thing is putting my foot down and making sure the line doesn't move back any further. I still have opinions on the people who go around claiming that they're de-radicalizing everyone on how well they're doing. Because here's the thing: it becomes very hard to stick on the line and keep things steady when people who are still parroting fascist rhetoric are just coming in, adopting a couple of economic policies for the left, and are still, using ableism, transphobia, racism, all this shit. It becomes incredibly hard to, do my work when they're fucking up theirs.
It's also really hard when trans people come along and just are transphobia is fine. I have all these transphobic beliefs, and they're completely fine. Because then people are like, who do I trust? This small YouTuber who makes me feel bad, or this big one with the pretty dress who says that I'm okay for these bad things? Anyway, fifth point I noticed that was transphobic in Piggy's video, 2136 to 2234. He attempts to not only force standards on trans people as a cis person, but force standards that he's not willing to live up to. And this goes back to not watching the video.
Sorry.
Yeah, he's all the essence of thought is bad. They didn't watch Natalie's whole video, and then they stopped before we even got out of the introduction phase of their video.
Seriously, they could have picked highlights from my video.
Yeah,
that would have been better if you went through, picked highlights from my video, and just show those highlights. I realized it's unreasonable to expect someone to sit down and watch the entire thing. I understand that. That's why, Natalie, I had to change my entire style to do Natalie's video. It was nearly 2 hours long. So I completely understand, like, oh, they can't respond to the whole thing. I get that. So pick out issues. If I'm going to say out of context, here's the thing. I will demonstrate the context that makes what I say okay. That's how I do it. I have no fear of you taking anything out of context because I will always have the original to show the context. So, yeah.
But that would have taken effort. See, he complained so much about people not watching the whole video before they decide to respond. But his entire career is literally built off that. Like, the whole part of the appeal of what he does is you're seeing his first reaction real time.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't carry a fucking agenda around like I do, with references on everything. So, yeah.
But he's smarter than you, don't you get it?
Yeah, he's smarter.
But yeah, he declares that, he declares he doesn't have to watch the whole video. See, here's the thing. He doesn't just, when he refuses to follow the rules that he himself sets for people, he will make up these little caveats, these little exceptions for himself. Oh, I know I said a bunch of times that they're bad for not watching the whole video, but I don't have to watch this whole video because I'm convinced it's in bad faith. But it's like, you could have been convinced Contra's video was in bad faith, so why don't you get an exception?
Can we also?
It's because he holds trans people to a higher standard than he holds himself.
Can we also define bad faith here? Because so many people running around.
It means criticism. It means criticism.
They seem to think it means overly harsh or unfair criticism. That's not bad faith. At most, that is assuming bad faith. Bad faith means you're approaching a situation with disingenuous intent. So you're forwarding yourself as wanting a debate, when in reality, you want to proselytize. You have no intention of changing your mind. That is approaching a situation in bad faith, or an example of it. I wear my reasons very openly, very on my sleeve. That's why I seem harsh to people. The thing they accuse me of being bad faith on the basis of is the exact opposite of bad faith. I just received a $10 donation from Cubal. PP's degeneration seems to mirror the atheist community of Austin's downfall almost exactly. This is just code for cis people. I'm sorry to all the cis people listening. This is not new. This is a pattern of behavior we see regularly. Cis person comes in, cis person gets told that they're wonderful for doing a few performative gestures or acceptance towards trans people. Cis person assumes they know better than trans people about trans issues. Cis person gets called out for doing transphobic things. Cis person,
throws a massive tantrum.
Targets trans people trying to call out their transphobic behavior. You have one more point.
Sorry, one more point in my notes here. Unfortunately, I wrote it out in full, so I'd know what it was, but then that makes it hard to read the whole thing before I have to speak. So Pigpuncher, he's holding trans people to these unreasonable standards, like not just high standards, but unreasonable standards. But he believes he doesn't have to live up to them. But he also believes that while we have to reach these massively unreasonable standards to criticize each other, he can dismiss us without even listening to what we have to say. Like, this is so ridiculous.
It's not just ridiculous, it is another form of transphobia, just like the standards in the double standards of racism. Like, again, you expect marginalized people to do everything for you. It's the expectation of sainthood for marginalized communities. Meanwhile, you can do whatever the fuck you want, and like no one is criticized. Like no one that's like criticizing me for creating division on the left is actually criticizing him for doing it.
It's transphobia. Like, this whole list has been transphobia, but it's specifically like when you see this kind of behavior, usually the sort of thing you see is something like, I don't know, cis people who will just conveniently ignore trans people they disagree with,
or they're not attracted to. I'm not joking about that one. That's a very common thing.
That's true. but it's the it's so blatant, and it's the combination of expecting trans people to live up to standards that no one usually expects, to talk about each other, very obviously dismissing us without even pretending to listen to what we say. Like, it's the same behavior, but it's just so blatant. I've never seen it this blatant before.
I mean,
It's just I've never seen it this severe. I don't even know what to say.
Is that your last point?
Yeah, sorry, I'm done.
It segues rather nicely into actually what I was going to discuss next, which is like the entire reason we're here. Like, what were they responding to? Let me summarize Natalie's video. Natalie has been criticized for doing some very shitty things towards non-binary people. She's not really ever apologized for any of the shitty stuff she's done throughout the past. And like, first couple of times we gave her the benefit of the doubt, but it reached a critical mass for many people when she invited Buck Angel, a very prominent non-binary phobe, to voice a part in her video Opulence. And people were fucking criticizing that, and they had fucking good reason to be. This is someone who routinely trashes non-binary people, attacks healthcare access for all young trans people, like just goes after anyone that sort of promotes trans equality outside of the realm of true scum, their realm. And it's to the point that one of Buck Angel's buddies is Graham Linehan, and this has been an open fact for a long time before Natalie's video. And Natalie knew this. Natalie knew there were issues with Graham, but decided to have him on anyway as honoured guest. And when the issue was raised, decided to thank him after the issue was raised for being an honoured guest. And it's not just the non-binary phobia either. There's a lot more to what's going on with Buck Angel. Most notably, he's a known domestic abuser. This is the first time some of you are probably hearing about that fact. Well, the Rolling Stones article he did in 2006, 3 years after his divorce to his ex-wife, the intention of that article, in which he outed Lana Wachowski, his ex-wife's new partner, was to harm his ex-wife and their new partner, which is a classical form of domestic abuse. It's controlling behavior. And he continues to do this to 2014. There was an article, an interview. Thank you to The Last Nerve, paying up my cult dues. Praise unto Peter/Ethel, forever holy be thy names. Thank you.
You never told me there were cult Jews.
There were cult Jews.
Damn it.
Anyway, so I haven't.
Does my Patreon pledge count?
This is a second cult member. I've got Levi. Now I've got The Last Nerve. But anyway, yes. So they continue to do this to 2014 at the very least, where their former wife was BDSM performer. He handled the financial side of the business. She handled the actual BDSM side of the business. She had a performer name, as many in the BDSM community is. The year she divorced him, she very openly left that name behind. Okay? This is in 2003. Buck Angel went ahead and got remarried that year, by the way. 2014, Buck Angel's, the marriage that he then got into, falling apart. So what does he want to do? Well, he starts talking about his ex-wife, Lana Wachowski, again, saying a lot of shit about them. And in that interview, he starts asserting his authority over his ex-wife. Claiming, like, they ask Buck Angel about her using her actual name, and he goes, that's not their real name. Their real name is their performer name, which, reminder, is the name they used when working directly under him. And it's what they hung up when they left. So again, he was trying to still assert his control over this woman he had divorced 11 years ago. So yeah, and Natalie pretends like this is forbidden knowledge, this is all forgotten. This was all published in a Rolling Stone article. Natalie claimed, Buck Angel has a right to privacy. He lost that right to privacy when he sold the story to hurt his ex-wife and their new partner. You know, these sort of arguments are ridiculous, and I criticize that, and I criticize that very bluntly. So Pigpuncher decides he wants to run in because I also criticize other aspects of what Natalie does, including the fact that a lot of the cis people she seems to be de-radicalizing seem pretty toxic towards other trans people that aren't passing or are non-binary. And I'm explaining that she sort of serves as this this quota for certain people. Cis people come along, they think, oh, I watch ContraPoints videos, therefore I'm a trans ally. Like that is the Natalie Wynn effect. That's mine. That's patented, trademarked. The Natalie Wynn effect. Cis people coming along thinking that watching like this individual like content creator who is quite powerful for a member of a marginalized community, watching their single content makes them an ally to the entire community and allows them to speak on it. I criticize that, and that seemed to strike a nerve with Piggy. Piggy did not seem to like that. Again, I did not know who Piggy was before this. Comes out of nowhere, making all sort of accusations about my motives, about my thoughts, etc., which no one fucking knows. Hardly I know half the time.
That's a lie. Everyone in the cult knows.
Everyone in the cult knows. We have telepathic links. So, you know, it's just, they just come flying out of nowhere, make all this shit about me, primarily, the thing that stuck with me was the lie about what I said. Immediately, I went to their channel, I corrected them, I gave them a timestamp, I told them exactly what I said, here's the miscommunication. He doubled down for ages, and then he kind of sort of admitted he made a mistake, and this is reference 8 I'm going to show. Let me find it, the infamous AC post, and I believe Chrisiosity is about to make an appearance in this one. Screen capture transition. This is the infamous AC post. For those angry that the Essence of Thought video I made was kind of half-assed, I was really out of it while streaming yesterday, and I'm not really happy with my rhetorical skill from any of the stuff I covered. Just kind of forced myself to stream yesterday because I hadn't had a few days and my upload schedule would be broken if I didn't do it. Unfortunately, my AC has been broken for months, and now that winter is over and spring is coming, every day is miserably hot in my room, and it's getting impossible to focus on politics when I wake up literally every morning in a soaking wet sweat covered blanket suffocating on the hot, humid air in my room. I am probably
up your punctuation game. Hyphens and commas are a thing.
I'm probably going to have to do something about my current living situation. Maybe moving back to my place in Tampa, where there is good AC. They corrected that until I could move out to California, which I'm aiming to do in July. In light of this, I may have to stream less or a lot later from now on. I just can't sit stuck to my chair in 90-degree Florida weather with the heat of my PC making it even worse. Here's the thing. I have contacts in Florida. So the first thing I did was I contacted his contacts to ask about the weather. It wasn't particularly hot at the time. So again, complete and utter bullshit. They were bullshitting for no reason. And here's the thing. Their lie had been noted. They know exactly how they lied. They know how it was incorrect. And they decided, I'm going to keep the video up. Even though I was talking about the abuse I was receiving, namely, people would come in. It was like a free-stage thing. First they'd come in. They would make the assertion about, you hadn't watched Natalie's whole video? That marks it as coming from Pigpuncher's audience. I'm sorry. Only when he made that stream did that become an argument. Before that, I had not seen that argument. Suddenly I did. So first of all, you hadn't watched a whole stream. Then it was, you're jealous about her and you just want to replace her. And last of all, they'd very often top it off with, you're just a fake transgender anyway. So this is the sort of shit I was receiving all the time. But as noted, I'm used to it. None of it was getting through. I have all comments held for moderation. It was all getting sifted out. So that's why I just left it for 2 months. It's like, maybe, yeah, I had an issue with it. Maybe he had a shitty day. Maybe he'll solve it. Maybe he'll do better. The next 2 months, did he remove that video, which was factually incorrect? No. No, he didn't.
He keeps insisting it's not factually incorrect. He says, oh, because it was a hot day, I rushed the stream, but it was all of it was completely true. And it's like, first of all, we can prove it's not. And second, if it's true, then why are you apologizing?
That's the thing.
It's very weird. It's very, very weird behavior.
I had someone who was talking directly to him. So I know additional things I sadly cannot share. But yeah, so I know that's total bullshit. He knows he lied, but he just can't fucking ask to remove the video. Why do you think? Well, I went back and I checked it, and it's one of the most popular videos he put out around that time. I believe there's a Stefan Molyneux video that did better around then, and then later on it was the Gun Girl did better. Like, his original defense of Natalie's video got less views than his incredibly dishonest take on me. So, yeah. And despite the facts that I was quite vocal at the facts that I was receiving transphobic abuse over it, he decided, you know what, my profiting is worth more. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but a video defending a trans person is less popular than a video throwing a trans person under the bus. But Piggy definitely doesn't have any kind of transphobia problem, either himself or in his community. No problems here, nothing to see.
And here's the problem with what he did, because like there's the lies, there's dishonesty, there's the framing techniques he's used. Here's the problem with the very action of what he did. He came along and he tried to insert himself as a cis guy into a criticism by a non-binary person of a binary trans person about said binary trans person's non-binary phobia. Actions that supported non-binary phobia, if you want to get finicky with it or whatever. He had no reason to be in that conversation. The conversation right then was between me and Natalie, as well as the rest of the trans community. But he just can't take the fact that it's not all about him. He has to come in and he has to insert himself in that and make it all about him, and really had no place. And to do that, he acted incredibly aggressively. He made up shit about my motives, which he did not know. He lied about what I did. And then when he was called out on this, did everything he could to deny responsibility for what he did. And another thing I noticed is, looking through, before this, his content, there wasn't that much on trans people. After I start pointing out the transphobia in his actions, suddenly it started to increase a little bit. That's another little interesting thing I noticed. Now, that could just be correlation, because correlation does not equal causation. But it does make me a little suspicious. Especially with the way that he tries to shift the focus from his mistakes onto the AC, onto, helping make they, them pronouns normalized, to lying about saying that the other person had pronouns in their pronoun. They're doing all of this sort of thing to distract from the actual issue. That does make me question the sincerity of his recent displays. Is he criticizing these people because he actually thinks they're wrong? Or is he doing it because he feels like he can chip it in as a token? Oh, I criticize these bigots that everyone disagrees with, therefore I can't be transphobic. I think you'll find I am due for, another 5 misgenderings. I can get away with that. Yeah.
Mentioning the thing where he criticizes people that everyone already disagrees with reminds me of a point I had. I'm not sure if it's something in the thing, but Like, you know how people tend to misunderstand, like they say, oh, this person defended a trans person, they're a trans ally. So okay, a lot of people don't seem to understand this. So I got an analogy here for my fellow white people. Okay, you don't know because I don't appear on camera. I am in fact white. But like fellow white people, we can all agree, right? It's really fun to dunk on someone who like endorses slavery or says the N word or does something really disgusting like that. It's really fun to dunk on them and talk about how they're a horrible person and how we denounce them, we disavow. But how fun is it when a person of color approaches you and says, hey, this thing you said, that's not cozy. Can you not do that? How fun is it when someone says, there's a real problem with racism in this country, and it'd be great if you could change things that you do to help out? Like, that's not fun. Usually it's very tempting to just ignore that and be like, I don't really have the energy for that. The idea that you are an ally because you dunk on you disagree with the people that everyone already has a problem with, you do the things everyone is already doing, that doesn't make you an ally. It just makes you not
Not an
the
arsehole.
worst kind of person. Yeah, an ally is someone who does the hard thing, who listens to the criticism, who changes their behavior. Disagreeing with the people who are obviously bad doesn't make you an ally. It makes you someone who likes to dunk on people who are bad and wrong.
I'd say an ally's more. So an ally's someone who goes far and beyond, who goes to shoulder part of like the burden and all that, but he doesn't do that. He spends most of his time, seemingly these days, attacking non-binary people, lying about them, claiming that because they take issue with this whole every person who says they're left into all left spaces and abuse like all manner of marginalized groups because we're trying to de-radicalize them, and calling out that abuse, that's not a way to de-radicalize them. You can't call out their abuse. That will just radicalize them again. Putting a standard on that.
If you tell people not to do something, then that's somehow going to make things worse.
It's going to make them a Nazi. You're going to turn them into a Nazi again.
If you teach them right from wrong, that will just make them more evil.
if you do that, and you start like commenting on their videos, suddenly you're spamming every one of their videos. You're spamming every person who comments on said videos. You're not giving them a second. If you share a message from one of their fucking transphobic pieces of shit followers who is making effectively an attack helicopter joke in your name, quite literally, I'm just going to say you invented that message. Like you made it up. The fact that I was publicly threatened kind of shows that people don't have to make this shit up. This is just your audience. This is just what they do because you goad them into it. So yeah. Oh. And that's another thing I've noticed. Like a lot of their videos on transphobia are going after trans people with internalized transphobia. Now, those sorts of discussions are incredibly messy, difficult to resolve. So, let trans people sort that shit out. If you want to help us in that regard, amplify our voices. Help us get a bigger platform. Don't come along and demand we do everything you say. That our activities, our activism has to fit your ideas. Or, you'll just revoke your allyship. So yes, is there anything you want to add?
I had a thing, but I blanked. So that's
the fact is, reference 10 is a timestamped video of the facts that the extent I will go to when I realise I make a mistake. For those who don't know, whilst responding to Stephen Woodford, quick history lesson. Stephen Woodford, a YouTuber, put out a transphobic video on trans people in sports, dehumanizing them, using a bunch of garbage science, not understanding how to read graphs. I responded to them, pointed out the transphobia, said, please correct this. They fucked around for a month, decided to paint themselves as Galileo, like say, fuck it, I'm just going to double down on being a transphobe. At one point, organization, the ACA, the Atheist Community of Austin, condemns them because they had him on a stream, and then they got lots of letters saying, this person is really transphobic. They didn't really condemn him. They said, we apologize for having this person on, before they clarified what they said or apologized. We should have waited until after, or had them discuss it on air. That's all they said. Now, there was the screenshot of this, and then there's another screenshot of it that he showed, and that screenshot, the second one, had the bottom bit blurred out, where they said that we should have had them discuss it on air, or just waited until they had clarified things. Now, I thought they'd edited out that bit, when actually the bit that had the bottom bit blurred was what I wish they'd said. That was my editor mistake. I noticed it, thankfully, before I published the video, but after I posted a tweet about it. So, I had to re-record the whole video, because it was central throughout the video. I had to re-record the whole video, edit the whole thing, and I then came on and I apologized for the tweet, because I'd made a mistake. My viewers, if no one else, deserve to know that. That is the extent I went to. He can't even take down a video that's been demonstrated objectively to be factually incorrect. So,
and he would have a there's also in this situation there was the other mistake he did where you corrected that as well. So he knows that you correct mistakes.
Oh yes, that was the Reddit mistake just recently. Is that what you're talking about? I misidentified a DLive icon. I didn't know DLive was a thing. I didn't know what DLive was. I misidentified it, which is like a ninja icon, as the Reddit robot, because it was where I was looking at it was a stream, and the icon's tiny. I misidentified it. Someone pointed it out within 20 minutes, and I posted a clarification immediately.
You immediately over one tweet with this minor error, you immediately like, oh my god, I made a mistake. I'm so sorry. And he can't even take down a video.
It mattered to some people. That's why I did it. It would matter to some people.
But that's the thing, because he can't even take down a video where he declares you, your entire person, you as a person, to be in bad faith over mishearing something, or mishearing something, and agreeing with you. This is the difference, people.
Back then, I viewed him as transphobic, through his actions, but he wasn't too far gone, sort of thing. If he had acknowledged his mistake, taken the video down, then maybe we could have had a discussion, But,
I don't know. Considering the transphobia that was baked into his video, I'm not sure about that.
I don't know. But now on, I've seen how Piggy treats other people, the transphobia, the misgendering we've gone over, the lies he makes repeatedly about trans people. Whenever he makes a fuck up, it's always the other person's mistake. It's always them who gets the blame. Oh, this, he, him, NB had they, them in their profile. No, they fucking didn't. This trans person faked the screenshot. No, they didn't. This trans person didn't watch the whole video. Yeah, I fucking did. It's always them he's making bullshit about to excuse his behavior. And he just pulls it out of nowhere. Sorry, I'm getting a little annoyed. Because it does annoy me. It does grate me.
Can I just ask which number we're up to? Because I'm kind of lost in the
23.
in the doco.
23. So yeah, this is pretty much it. Left it for 2 months until it kept popping up on radar. The first one I saw was Phoenix Rising 87, who again was the person that criticized MB. They criticized the open door policy to allowing people with fascist rhetoric into leftist and LGBT plus spaces, because it's our job to de-radicalize them. There's Nazis, and then there's us, and then there's everyone between the Nazis and us. Can we de-radicalize the people in between us and the Nazis first? So there was that. I noted this on Twitter, and then later on, Black Magic Bimbo, general critic of the dirtbag left, That was the fabricating private images. That's what he went after her for. So, you know, and then afterwards I asked around, Sosh, Maddie, Jamie J, Vivian Wolf, Auntie Demon, you know, Trans Gamer Girl, everyone. They're just going for everyone. Sorry, no, it wasn't Trans Gamer Girl they did a video about. Sorry, I misread that. But everyone else was, yeah. And that's just the ones I know of. Like, you know,
Yeah.
6 non-binary people and a binary trans person.
And if I recall from scrolling through their Twitter, I don't see them going after other people who aren't trans. So it's not just like they have an issue of going after a lot of trans people, but it's only going after a lot of trans people. It's like, maybe he's just a bit obsessed with the trans community and not in the trans activist way.
Yeah, maybe he's just looking for an excusable way to act on his transphobia. We see this like a lot with racism, like qualified racism. That's something we see quite a bit. This whole idea of, oh, I'm only going after, you know, street rats and thugs, and it's like, yeah, but like you don't understand the systemic issues going on there, you know, and you're also being fed this culture by like tabloid news that is just absolute fucking bullshit. I get the same sort of sense here. That it's like Graham Linehan. Graham Linehan views himself to be a ally to the trans community. They have a problem with the trans cult. That's why they like holding up people like Buck Angel. And there's also a trans woman who hangs around with these groups that like is their token. He regularly like weighs her about. It's like, see, I can't be transphobic. Ignore the facts. I'm trying to hurt, you know, trans children by having funding taken away from services designed for them, or hell, have them tortured. That's the thing. Like, it could be. It could be malicious. I'm looking for an outlet for my transphobia. I'm going to pick certain people, the most outcast, the non-binary people, or the socially active trans people. Activist, active. That society seems to hate. I'm going to go after them, and people would defend me for it. Hey. Or if they genuinely think that, like, you know, they do actually have an issue with all the bigots they criticize, and they just can't be asked to fucking understand like trans issues. They can't be bothered to sit down and listen to what we have to say. They just want to keep going after trans person after trans person. Yeah, it's like it's not just like the lies. There's also the debate me bro culture that they're feeding into. Now this is something I've dealt with for a long time in the secular community. I was once someone who was like fooled by this, and it's this idea that if you don't sit down and have a live debate with someone, that you're a coward, something like that. You know, it's this really toxic mindset, and it just needs to die away. If you have an issue with what I say, take your own time, do references, you know, do your research, stuff like that, and actually respond to what I say, not what you wish I said.
In the chat, initially when this video went up, Piggy was in the chat complaining, and he's like, oh, if you're right, then you should be able to defend yourself in a 1v1 debate. And then I responded, if you're right, you should be able to defend yourself in a prepared video. Why can't you defend yourself in a prepared video? Why do we have to do your format?
Yeah.
And he just completely ignored it. It's like, I do better with a back and forth. And I'm thinking, but some people do better in a prepared format.
Yeah. And this is still out of my comfort zone. But like, as much as I needed to talk about this, would I want to spend a like fully referenced, planned out, scripted video on this? Probably not.
Yeah, actually, can I talk a bit about a couple of the patterns I've noticed with him, 27 and 28? Because those were my points I suggested.
Okay.
Yeah, so I noticed 2 patterns that Piggy has. One where he, like, you know, when in criticism people will say, oh, I can see from this that this person has this issue with being, you know, this person is maybe a bit jealous or a bit or uncharitable, or they tend to assume the worst of people but it will be based on something. Oh, this person misunderstood a bunch of people in this specific way. They seem to assume people are aggressive when they're not. But Piggy tries to do this, but he has nothing to base it on. So he will just basically say, it's like, oh, you're this thing. Specifically
You're
in
so
the chat.
mad. You're so mad.
In the chat of this video, and this was very funny because he does things that I specifically criticizing Peter. These were very funny to me because these were things I know are very obviously wrong and the complete opposite. Like he called Peter a coward for not saying, "Oh, they don't want to debate me because they're just a coward," and I'm just like vaguely gesturing to the whole of 2019, and I'm just like, yes, they're very cowardly. Woodford, the ACA. It's Rotten Peach, Rachel Oates, very cowardly person there, basically single-handedly standing up to the
Pretty
whole,
much all of secular YouTube.
pretty much, yeah. You tore the community in half and had to deal with the fallout for a whole year. Just very cowardly.
Yes, I lost $160 in that a month. Yeah.
It's one thing they said is that Peter's like has no empathy. And this one for me, my mind immediately went to the interview we did. For those of you who don't know, we did an interview as part of the fundraiser, the Roll to Save fundraiser. And one bit I specifically remember
I didn't quite understand what you were going, like, with the angle in.
Yeah.
I went into that interview thinking that, if you do go watch the video, by the way, content warning for internalized homophobia.
Oh, yeah.
And, like,
I talk about...
It, like, really
I talk
heavy.
About... a lot of self-loathing in regard to neurodivergence, gender presentation, sexuality. It's quite heavy. I didn't realize it would be because I'm used to people expecting. I'm used to people not taking things seriously that are obviously problems. But anyway, my mind immediately went to the interview because I specifically remember one point when they said, don't do anything you're not comfortable with. You weren't invited to be a spectacle. And that's not the action of someone who is self-serving and has no empathy. Someone who has no empathy and is just looking to benefit from things would be like, yes, please go deeper. Let's make this as sensationalist as possible.
I mean, the way that, because going in, like, the way you talked to me about it, I thought it was a resolved issue, not an ongoing battle that you're dealing with. So I was you see my face, my expression, like, if you watch that video, you see my expression change as I realized, oh, okay.
I didn't pick up on it because I was very tired at the time. It's actually very weird because I didn't realize this was a problem. And I'm just like, whatever.
It's not a problem. But it's just like at that point, I kicked in with my buddy counselor because something I haven't really discussed on my channel. I've done like one video where I discussed what happened on my first day at working at the charity. For my placement year at university, I had three choices pretty much in my degree: prison complex, private sector, or charity. And I picked charity, unpaid charity for a year. So I had to work double just to pay for myself so I could do it. They did cover my travel costs. That's the one thing I set, like, I'm willing to work for you for free 5 days a week, full time, like for a year. But could you help me with travel costs, because like the British Rail is ridiculous in like their travel cost. They covered that. So like, and whilst I was there, none of the counsellors were trans, so I had to receive some basic training just so I could do like buddy counselling sort of thing, like discussing topics that they might not be comfortable enough talking with the heavy counsellors. So like at that point, that's where that sort of kicked in. But no empathy. I'm apparently empathy starved.
I just, because that stream is actually. Like if you go watch it, you can just hear it, see on their face, hear in their voice, like how much they're concerned for me, and that stream actually means a lot to me because of that. But even as after that, just a few days ago, I mentioned that the isolation because of COVID-19 was really messing with me. So Peter spent like 4 or 5 hours on a Zoom call with me, just to help me out. That's not the action of someone who has no empathy. Someone who has no empathy and was trying to look the part would just be like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you get this."
Yeah.
No, this is someone who has empathy and actually does things to solve problems when people are suffering. So that was very ridiculous
if
to
any
me.
of you are wondering, like I showed some images at the end of the last stream. We'll get back to this in a second. I showed some images at the end of the last stream, and one of them was a boat in a jungle. That was during that I was drawing. Anyway,
The boat was my idea.
that's right. Yeah.
I just started suggesting random things to go in the jungle. I'm like, why not a shipwreck? But yes, that was very funny to me. And what the other thing I noticed was, so this was still in the chat on this video way back when it first went up, and Piggy was like, "Oh, they have no empathy," and I'm thinking of a witty response I could do that wouldn't stir things up too much. So I just went with, "Please keep lying about my friend. It's very funny to me." Like at the time, I was just like, because these are things that are just so obviously wrong to me that I know are completely bogus. And they respond.
Another thing is, if it was all about me and only cared about me, why didn't I respond 2 months ago?
Yeah, but they were just like, "Oh, you're not laughing. I could hear your tears through your text." And the thing that was weird to me is that they don't know me. I guess it's possible that they could have watched my entire catalog or something, but like they've been actively ignoring my video about them. We've never spoken. They blocked me on Twitter when I think I tagged them once in a thing. Like they don't know me, and they were presuming to know my character and how I'd respond to this sort of things. Like they really love inventing character traits for people to explain their behavior. It's very weird. Like he was pwning me by imagining a world where I was sad. He's just writing fan fiction at this point.
The defect is with you. He can't have done anything wrong. So anything he can explain away the issue.
Yeah. And then the other pattern I've noticed is he cannot be charitable or fair in any sense. Whenever there's a possible explanation for something, he always goes to the most extreme. If you won't debate me, it's because you're a coward. Not because debate is a bad format. Not because you think we can't debate because you don't trust me to be honest, not because you're uncomfortable with it, not because you need to prepare everything. It can't be because you have maybe some people are very anxious about presenting and like lock up and can't speak. Like there's so many reasons why live debate is a bad idea for people. Can't be any of those. It's specifically because you're a coward. You criticize someone. It can't be because you think they're wrong, whether you're correct in that assumption or not. It can't because you genuinely think they're wrong. It's because you're jealous and you want to steal their success. Like, he can never choose the reasonable explanation everyone else just immediately considers is probably the thing.
Another one that sort of builds into this is like he comes from the alt-right, admittedly. He's adopted a few economic policies of the left. He still uses right-wing rhetoric, ableism, transphobia. He uses right-wing dog whistles and right-wing memes. And
yeah,
yet
actually,
he gets mad at the fact that I have issue with the idea that he is actually a leftist. I remember when Saga Nakad started becoming a thing. He came out and he was a classical liberal, y'all. Do you remember the term classical liberal? Yeah, okay. I have some right-wing policies, but I also have some left-wing ones as well. How did that shit turn out? That's what I'm seeing happening in leftist circles. The dirtbag left, to me, seems like just the latest rendition, the latest evolution of the classical liberal. It's a way to be shitty about people and use leftism as a defense.
I made an observation about Piggy's Twitter that I want to share because it was very smart. I get to feel clever about this one. Scrolling through, I noticed like the only thing on his Twitter that wasn't completely toxic was the economic stuff. He just wants to have free healthcare and good pay and good working conditions, and also hate everyone who isn't a straight, cis, white, toxically masculine man.
Unless he's attracted to them.
Unless he's attracted to them.
There's a respectable way to be a trans person.
It's to be a very attractive to the male gaze trans woman and nothing else.
I guess that leads me on to the last point, which is how is this like the worst transphobia? Like, what the hell is up with that title? Am I right? Is it okay to move on, or do you have anything else that you want to add quickly?
No, I'm done, finally.
How is
I've been
this
hijacking
the worst
your
transphobia?
stream.
We are approaching the end, people. 2 hours in, we are approaching the end. The end is nigh. How is this the worst transphobia? And it's like, on a macro scale, what is Piggy constantly doing? He's tone policing, he's policing our, respectability, he's trying to control what trans conversations are about and how trans conversations happen. As a cis person, just coming in and asserting, trans person number 2, I don't like the way you're doing this. You're doing it wrong. Even though he's not fucking involved in any way. It's not his rights at stake. It's not his community at stake. And the reason I take issue with this, it's all coming back down to that respectability politics. Now, if you don't know what respectability politics are, it is this idea that in order to gain your rights aren't actually rights, they're givens. You aren't really people. You're more like a dog. And if you do a good trick, we'll give you your rights. And this is part of assimilationist culture. This is part of the idea that gay marriage is okay on account that a gay couple can act and be just as good and as samey as a heterosexual couple. That one of them will, of course, be the man of the family, and one will be the woman of the family. Like, it leaves no openness for difference. And
it's like you have to adapt to what society wants,
yes,
rather than society expanding to accept you.
Society doesn't change, you change. The way that they do this is they condition their support of your rights. If you don't do what I say, I'm going to send you transphobic harassment. I'm going to get my followers to threaten you. I'm then going to use a right-wing dog whistle that suggests I don't actually have an issue with the threat, so continue going ahead. I'm just going to use it, so if you say I support it, well, I disavow. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Misgendering. Look. I have these videos here supporting trans people against these very openly transphobes. I can't misgender someone. It's perfectly fine. And the reason this is so disheartening is that whilst direct, upfront transphobia tends to strengthen communities, we tend to come together and unify far easier when facing someone who is just openly transphobic. When it's someone who is conditioning support on the grounds that you better do what I say as a cis person, there is a segment of the community that has been broken by cishet society. And they want that. They want that acceptance by any means. And they will defend the horrible things this bigot is doing because they think, okay, maybe if I'm their token, maybe if I defend them, maybe if I support them, then they'll treat me like a person. It's just, trans people are some of the most passionate people I've seen. It's the same for all marginalized group. They have faced such adversity. And they come out on top and they still stand tall with their heads up high and they say, no, Stonewall was a riot. Then to have these cis allies come along and demand that, you know what, you're revolutionaries, cut it out or we won't support you. You better follow our demands, or it's a no from us. And it breaks trans people. It makes them hostage to respectability politics. And that is one of the most fucking depressing things to see. Like when you see a person so whipped, so beaten by a transphobe, that they'll do everything they can to get out of that situation. And I could understand the trans person in that situation. But to see the person acting like, you know, that's great. That's allyship. No. It's training you. It's gaslighting you. It's telling you abuse is allyship when it's not. And that's the toxicity we have to deal with. When it's a bigot up front, fine, we can come together, we can fight it. When it's Graham Linehan, no one's really in question there. Like, there's one or two tokens out there that support him, but most of us come together and unite against him. But when it's people like Piggy, who are just as toxic, because here's a fun fact, that Louis Defence Fund is against Graham Linehan. Why? Well, I reported on Graham Linehan and was threatened with a slap suit. Do you want to know who has also threatened me with a slap suit? Piggy. Piggy has also threatened me with a slap suit in the lead up to this video. All because I point to their actions, I share screenshots of what they've done, and I dissect it.
Technically, didn't he threaten to go to the police about defamation, not a lawsuit?
But that's where he's going with it, because the police can't do anything. It's not a legal matter, it's a civil matter.
That's my problem. I don't know how police works.
It was threatening with legal action. That's the point. He doesn't know the difference between civil or criminal cases. We do.
Well, you do. I don't. I just don't deal with the police because they're garbage.
And it's also denying the autonomy to people who have mental health problems, who have suffered abuse. The people who need to talk out the most, denying them the autonomy, that's anti-standpoint. If you don't know what standpoint is a basic principle of many feminist perspectives. And all it says is that when it comes to things such as abuse and, you know, racism, transphobia, homophobia, ableism, etc., listen to the people being affected. They're the ones who are going to be able to tell you how it impacts their lives. You know, he's against that. Piggy's policy is listen to the abuser only. And that's him.
It's also just really messed up because a lot of people who have mental health problems get it from abuse, and from the abuse perspective, the part of the abuse is stripping people of autonomy. So you're going in and re-abusing people.
It's re-victimization.
It's
absolutely horrific. I discussed, I have discussed on like Twitter and everything, the facts that I was scared to come out and discuss my stories of domestic abuse, childhood rape, and the abuse I suffered for being bisexual and trans. Because back when I started, one of the common arguments used against LGBT plus people on YouTube, I haven't seen it so much these days, I know it's still around, I haven't seen it that often, is this argument that there are LGBT plus people because they've been abused. I was so scared that if I came out and talked about my experiences, that would happen. It hasn't really happened. The only one who's come and used my experiences as a weapon to try and shut me up is Piggy.
And Rachel Oates as well. But...
And Rachel Oates as well. I don't know, did she use that?
Oh yeah, well she used it on everyone. She's like, these people obviously have some sort of problem with trauma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
and ironically, she was the one who actually had the problem. So that was funny.
But it's just, and again, it feeds off the trans community's desperation, and it results in a situation where tokens who stay will do everything to fight and to remain part of the in-group. Trans people who refuse to be broken are forced to be social nomads. They have to leave their communities, go create a new community. The bigots follow them there. Leave, go create a new community. Bigots follow them there. And it just makes all of the performative allyship that Piggy does seem absolutely hollow. I do not trust Piggy.
Also on the social nomads thing, like, how much of a mood is it when you find like something like a YouTube channel you like, and then the YouTuber turns out to be transphobic, and you have to abandon this thing you liked and find a new space. It's not just the like bigots following people into communities, but it's also the community betraying trans people. We're constantly scared of our communities betraying us. It happened with the secular community. I used to love a lot of secular YouTubers. Like, I wasn't involved in the community, but I lurked for years. I basically grew up with them. And then what happened last year? They all turned out to be transphobic. Community got torn apart. I lost this community that I grew up with that shaped the person I am today. So the threat Piggy is making of hurting trans people, it's a big one.
And
It's a really
we've
big
experienced
one.
it. We've all experienced it. It's a shared trauma. We've all experienced this before. We have.
And we're constantly, and I've noticed trans people will. I think some trans people will ignore subtle transphobia in the hopes of I get to keep this thing. If this wasn't actually transphobic, if it was just a slip up, oh, it's not a big deal. It was just this one person, then I get to keep this thing that means a lot to me.
I just need to respond to someone. George Orwell. It wasn't an issue that he used the name. It was the issue, the fact that he asserted. This is Buck Angel. Buck Angel asserted that her performing name was her real name, and it defined her, and it was all she was. That was the issue. You want to come out there with that bullshit? I will close you down. Okay? For those who didn't see before the comment was removed, someone came at me and said, "Oh well, why is it a problem for like Buck Angel to use their performing name and you not?" The issue is not mentioning their performing name because they still accept it as part of their identity, like sort of a superhero identity they hung up. The problem is Buck Angel came along and said it's all she was. It was her real name. That was the issue. My God. Sorry, these people are so desperate. And that just ticks me off. That apology for domestic abuse just ticks me off.
Every time someone is abused, it's always, oh, you're wrong. This is what really happened. Fuck off. Fuck off.
Yeah, it's just...
Don't you dare.
That's the thing. Like, another thing people don't understand. Like, as someone who's experienced domestic abuse, I don't have a very big tolerance for domestic abusers. Like, that's one reason I was really angry at Natalie and what she did there. You know, because to see someone like, not just, you know, have them in the initial response, but in her defense of what she did, to come out and take part in hero worship and to label people who just know basic facts about Buck Angel's history that he chose to make public, label them as Nazis. Like, yeah. Anyway, I don't trust Piggy, period. That's reference 13 for you. Pretty much, when we were starting for the anti-slapsuit fund, Piggy tried to very slimily slide in and like wanted to get involved sort of thing, and I just shut the fucker down. I'm glad I did, because again, he's starting to make threats against me for legal action, and it's like, this anti-trans slap fund. Is that anti-slap fund for trans people? The trans anti-slap defense fund will be used against any slap suit I come across, or anyone else has to come across, because that's what it is. So, yeah. I don't trust him. I told him, like, I don't want you in this. And then I told the person that was like talking to Piggy before, like 2 months ago, I don't want this guy fucking sniffing around. And do you know why? I have no fucking trust for him. Like, he could turn around the next day and just stab me in the back if it's in his best interest. And he's quite happy to now threaten me with legal action. He is the same as Graham Linehan. If you think Graham Linehan is transphobic, you should think Piggy is transphobic, because they're not that far apart. Any trans person critical of their actions will be silenced by any means necessary. They won't be refuted. They will be silenced. What I've got here is noted the whole thing. I'm unsure as to whether it's deliberately transphobic or he's simply a slave to his ego. As mentioned earlier, like, it is possible that he's just looking for an outlet for his transphobia and has decided, like, you know, I'm going to go after these, like, obvious transphobes, target them, build up the trans tokens that I can chip in as I go after non-binary people and, you know, trans people, any trans person is critical of me, or whether he thinks he's doing the right thing, hasn't bothered to listen to trans people, and then like has just decided that anyone who criticizes him must be in the wrong because he cannot be mistaken. Yeah.
It's beyond question that his ego is at the center of this. You can just see it
When
you look at what he's done. His ego just dominates everything. It's just a question of, is there also a great nugget of transphobia on top of that, or is it just ego? And because he's see the thing is,
ultimately it doesn't matter. Ultimately it doesn't.
It doesn't matter.
It's the same result either way.
The thing is, a lot of these left tubers, I think this is important to recognize, is a lot of these dirtbag leftists go on about trans rights a lot. They don't actually care about trans rights. They focus on it because it's the trendy thing that gets you a lot of credit.
If you're
there
a cis
are other
person,
things. If you're a
cis person talking about trans rights, ooh, yay. If you're a very passing, like upper class trans person, ooh, good, okay. Not as good as the cis people talking about it, but yeah, still good. If you're one of the still odd people, they don't give a shit about you.
If we compare to issues with racism, it'd be really great if a bunch of left tubers could talk about racism all the time, because trans rights are important, don't get me wrong. Racism is still a huge issue, and is also something that white people have a lot of trouble accessing because, of course, English-speaking countries tend to be majority white. Those perspectives from people of color are something we're not aware of. I think it's much easier for cis people to learn about trans rights than for white people to learn about.
I don't think we can
people of
trust
color.
them. I honestly don't think we can trust them, though. What I'd like to see are more red tubers doing call-outs for people of color, disabled people, trans people, sex workers. Like, it would be good if you could give access to those resources for people who do that.
Oh yeah, it's better if they. But my point is, like,
we've seen how RedTube can deal with disability. We've seen how they deal with trans issues. If you want them to start focusing on race issues next, I'm
saying, let's pretend for a second they actually know what they're doing. Race would be a really good one to focus on, but you know why they don't do it? Is because white people don't want to hear about race, because it's uncomfortable and hard. It's much easier to be like, I'm using the right pronouns now, I'm so great. They're doing it for credit. They're not doing it because they actually care. There are so many issues to care about, but trans rights are the ones that are more popular than the other ones.
It's more media focused because, of course, like, there's this interest looking into trans lives.
It's never the obscure issues. They always talk about the ones that are very popular. It's almost like they're more interested in being liked than doing the right thing.
Yeah. However, I guess we're coming to like the final point, unless you've got anything else that you really want to add.
There's always stuff to add, but I can't remember any of it, and I also don't want this to be 10 hours long.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of shit. We've shown cases of piggy misgendering, arguing that it's okay to misgendering people again.
Silencing trans people for rules he refuses to follow that he made himself. This is not even a drop in the ocean of the stuff he's done, by the way. We're barely scratching the surface.
Tone policing, engaging in re-victimization of abuse victims, doing the exact same thing that the abusers did to them, stealing their autonomy and their voice. The list just continues and continues and continues. Character assassination, gaslighting.
Constant gaslighting.
Breaking the trans community's spirit. Yeah.
Being like Graham Linehan.
I want to be fair.
Being like Graham Linehan.
I want to be fair. Let's say this has all just been a horrendous string of mistakes. The ego got in the way, the blind rage has been going, the ACs have all been broken, all cards down on the table. What can Pigpuncher do actively? Okay? Reasonable thing. First thing, he is never going to regain my trust. I can guarantee that outright. But that's not to say he might That's not to say he can't regain the trust of other trans people, but there are certain things he has to do. First of all, for now at least, he immediately needs to stop talking on trans issues, going after trans people, no matter what they fucking say. Let us deal with our own people. Okay? Stop talking about trans people. Start lurking. If you don't know what lurking is, it sounds bad, it's not actually bad in this context. Lurking is a practice most often talked about on Twitter with various marginalized communities, where you follow people of that community, and the only engagement you're allowed to do is like and retweet. If you're not part of that community, don't insert your voice, don't add this and that, just amplify. Learn and amplify. He needs to go through, and many of the people who come to the left from the de-radicalization, if that's what you want to call it, need to go through this quarantine period where their abusive behaviors are curtailed. Speaking of which, he immediately needs to stop with all of the ableist and transphobic bullshit he partakes in. No more throwing out mental health problems, no more bringing up people's past abuse. That all needs to stop immediately. Any sign that that's not stopping, that's it. You know, the whole thing, he's showing that he's just fucking around. I've got notes of the immediate seizing of using the history of trauma to silence victims. They're just, he needs to shut up for a while.
These last two you shouldn't be doing anyway. Like, it's not hard to not do these things.
It's possible. It's possible. I will move on. I will forget him. I will never trust him in my fucking life. But it is possible. Given 6 months, a year of good, genuine fucking behaviour, not using ableist slurs, not going after every trans person who's critical of you, lying about them, calling them an abuser, saying that they have mental health problems, lying about their fucking pronouns, their past, their actions, doing all of this. Just avoid that for a time, and maybe parts of the trans community will start to, I'm trying to think of the word here, trust you. And maybe you can start to be part of that conversation again. Because right now, that trust isn't there. But a lot of trans people see you for exactly what you're doing. Because we've seen it a lot of times before. So, yeah, that's... I think those are pretty reasonable. At least, can we stop it with the ableist and transphobic abuse? And don't try to argue against, like, oh, it's fine to misgender this person because it normalizes pronouns. Just don't fucking do that, okay? That shouldn't need saying. That's, like, so basic. By the way, I haven't been actively moderating any of the messages, just so people know.
Something I've been wondering is, I hope that maybe Piggy might listen to the stream. Maybe a stream done by 2 trans people might have just enough trans cred to maybe be on par with his trans cred. I'm just hoping, maybe, if we're lucky, if we're particularly trans today, we might have enough trans cred to match up to Piggy.
I personally ask our cis overlords to go fuck themselves. So, yeah. Are there any final questions that people have in the chat? I'm going to have to, of course, keep talking for a bit as this sort of goes through. Yeah, I mean, it is really just a fucking mess. But then again, that's BreadTube. I remember I started being added to, like, the BreadTube Reddit, like, a year or so ago. And I was fucking happy back then. I was happy to be part of it. I then started to look into more of BreadTube, and I just found out that, no, it's this horrific hellscape. I mean, I remember the first time I saw a video by Vorsh, or clips or videos which Vorsh appeared in, and I just went, oh shit, this fucker's vile. Is this like another Ben Shapiro, Joe Rogan sort of person? And then people are like telling me, no, they're left wing. But all the ableism, the anti-LGBT plus, like, lobby sort of rhetoric, and they're leftist. I generally did not fucking know Vorsh was leftist when I first came across their videos. And it was confusion for like the first few weeks of like figuring that out. Until I eventually decided to check their page, and yeah, they were fucking dressing themselves as leftist. And that's what I mean by the whole fascist, like with a lick of leftist paint.
Now I'm wondering if there's a way to make the greatest thing since sliced bread tube into a joke somehow. Someone who's funnier than me, work on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one thing I probably should have mentioned earlier that I've noticed with Piggy, which is interesting, he's very, very critical of trans people, has very high standards of trans people, except when they agree with him, in which case he can be all like
Sarah
see,
Mitchell.
This is what trans people say. You can't question trans people. You got to be a good ally and listen.
Yes, and he does that with other communities as well. And he does
this
that
happens
with
a
the
lot.
tone policing as well. Like he quoted the Martin Luther quote about like the confusing the peace, which is the absence of violence, with peace, which is the presence of justice. And it's like, that's you when it comes to trans issues. That is you all over. You want trans people to be subservient to you, to be silent when you fuck up.
He prefers the negative piece of the absence of criticism to the positive piece of actually being right, of actually being correct.
But he does this a fucking lot. And he's
but that's a very common thing, not just him, but a lot of people, where they'll hold the minorities they don't like, who criticize them, to these ridiculous you can't listen to them because of all these things. But then when minorities agree with them, they're all like, oh, you got to be a good ally and listen, you can't disagree with this. You see, I'm right. People who do this, go fuck yourself if you do this.
It's like 2 months ago, the Sarah Mitchell thing. Sarah Mitchell, like he mentioned Sarah Mitchell, it's like, you just picked a trans person who disagreed with me. This is what they done. I showed like the screenshot of like, I fight for your right for free speech. So your hate speech. And like she's like gushing about fascists and their right to free speech and to be platformed, etc. And it's like, yeah, that was a great one to ask. But it seems like
if you're wondering how to do it, like when you have two trans people who disagree, how do you deal with that?
The
way you do that is you don't just pick the one you like or the one who's your fan or whatever. What you do is you listen to what they're saying and their reasons for the thing, and then you try and discern from that. Maybe try and ask some other trans people, but generally what you want to do is you don't just want to like do what trans people say. You also want to understand why you're doing it, and that's also just a good policy for life in general. Just listen to why. Maybe that's maybe a thing. You will notice a lot. You'll have one trans person who's like, this is bad for this very detailed reason, and then you'll have the token who's just like, I disagree and I'm a trans person. That's usually how it goes. So that's very easy. It's not hard.
It's the same as like the anti-vaxxers. I have all this research that supports vaccines, and I have this one paper that is now discredited that says they're a bad thing. They just take the one. But yeah. And that's...
At least those are papers, because usually when it comes to the token trans person, they're literally just saying, I'm trans and I feel this way. I'm not going to explain why. I'm just going to say, as a trans person, I speak for the entire community. And it's like, no, fuck off. No, you don't.
And that's the thing. People say like, oh, I'm trying to speak for the entire community. No. But when a cis person starts coming and telling me how to act, my boot's going somewhere. But anyway, I don't think we should like prolong this. We've discussed a lot. It's 2.5 hours long. So I think it's probably a good thing to wrap up. You need to go to bed. Get some more sleep.
I'm actually fine.
Bird.
I'll be fine for... I've had caffeine and I've had to think, and it's woken me up. I promise I will sleep though between now and D&D.
Okay, that's good. Yes, D&D stream on Sunday. It should be Monday. So it's actually Sunday for me. It's Monday for Bird here.
Yeah, just by 1 hour.
Yes. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. I'm sorry it's been such like a mess. Again, we started out with quite a clear idea of what we were doing, and then they just threw out more on top of it, and it just expanded. But thank you for all being patient. It's really appreciated. We hope you gain sight from the stream. I'm not going to make this into a video. It's not really worth one. If you want to mine anything I touched on, you're quite welcome to. There's a planned video coming out tomorrow. It's on abortion access. I've been working with it on it with Adita. Yeah, I guess that's really it. So with that, I think me and Levi will say goodbye and remind you to do your bit, unless there's anything else you want to say.
No, bye everyone.
Okay, well that's that. See you around.